What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. Now that Overwatch's new map Malevento is on live servers, Blizzard has been pushing hard the idea of there being some sort of dark mystery or secret hidden somewhere in this new location. And while I thought I did a pretty thorough sweep and analysis of the new map back when it was on PTR, I decided to examine it once again in light of all the new information Blizzard had given us, and lo and behold, it looks like there is, in fact, more going on in the streets of Malevento than any of us initially suspected. Real quick first though, before I dig into those details, I'd like to remind you to subscribe and hit up that bell icon to never miss out on any of my future Overwatch and Overwatch 2 news and content. But now, let's delve into the very strange mystery lying within Malevento. Now, aside from the general pleasant Italian countryside aesthetics of Malevento itself, the most significant aspect of this map in regards to the greater story of Overwatch seems to be the presence of what Blizzard dubs a Talon base. Now, I don't know about you all, but a single room containing a few crates, guns, and blueprints for a car don't really come across as a Talon base, in my opinion. Sure, this room here is most certainly occupied by someone affiliated with Talon, but given its incredibly small size and pretty sparse details, I'm hesitant to refer to it as being anything more than a last choice safe house or some sort of operations outpost. However, as I was searching through the new material Blizzard has given us for this map upon its release to live servers, I was watching the new map's trailer which they published on YouTube, and something did in fact catch my eye as they were scanning through this room. Right there, stop. Athena, enhance. What is this? That appears to be some sort of dossier containing documents and what looks like a photograph. On its own, not particularly interesting, but what if I told you that this folder here doesn't actually exist on the map in-game? For reference, here is a screenshot of the room that is actually playable in-game now, and there are certainly a few differences from the screenshot we see in the Malevento trailer. For one thing, in the trailer we see the telescope sitting on the central table as opposed to next to the balcony doorway, and also the presence of this little dossier, which I can tell you with absolute certainty does not exist on the actual map. Now, for those of you who've paid attention to these little types of details on Overwatch maps in the past, you might actually recognize this little dossier. And that's because it appears to be almost identical to the one featuring Ana in her Shrike mask, which can be found on multiple other maps, such as Temple of Anubis. However, there is one very distinct difference we see in this folder here, which is the picture featured within it. For reference, this is what Ana's dossier looks like, and we can see that is pretty clearly a picture of Ana wearing her Shrike mask. But when we compare it to the dossier seen in the Malevento trailer, that is not a picture of Ana, and thus is seemingly a folder documenting someone or something different entirely. Now, given that the folder isn't actually present on the map and can only be seen at this really harsh angle in the trailer, I was forced to simply try my best to stretch and rotate the image we see here in the trailer to try to properly see what exactly this is a photograph of. And lo and behold, I've seen that before. You might not be able to tell at first glance, but when comparing it side by side, you can very clearly tell that this is in fact a photograph of the Route 66 payload. What? Why in Malevento, Italy, is there a dossier featuring a photo and information about Echo's containment pod, which is situated in the American Southwest, which is on the entire other side of the world? Now, interestingly, this isn't even the only similarity between the Talon safe house room we see here and Route 66. The blueprint of a car we see on the table here is bizarrely similar to the blueprints we see of the Route 66 payload and bridge on Route 66. However, the main difference is that the operation in Malevento is being conducted by Talon, whereas the train heist on Route 66 is being conducted by the Deadlock Gang. Now, you could easily make an argument argument for Talon, in fact, being the ones who actually got the Deadlock gang to hijack the train and attempt to steal Echo, but it's hard to see how that could have anything to do with what's going on in Malevento. Furthermore, another very curious aspect of this dossier is that, as I mentioned earlier, all the other versions of this same prop we see on other maps in Overwatch all feature Ana with her Shrike mask. On no other map that I've ever been aware of or been able to find is there this exact same prop featuring the Route 66 payload. In fact, after discovering this, I re-scoured the entirety of Route 66, wholly expecting to maybe find this in a corner somewhere in the Deadlock Gang's hideout, and maybe it was just a prop I had somehow overlooked in all my times examining that map in the past. But no, it's nowhere to be seen, which seems to indicate that Blizzard specifically edited this dossier prop to include a picture of the Route 66 payload for Malevento. Or at least they did before ultimately removing it sometime prior to Malevento's actual release. I'll be honest, this little detail in and of itself is very strange, and doesn't seem to make much sense with the greater context of Malevento itself, which, as I'll be getting onto in just a second, appears to have its own whole thing going on, completely independent of whatever's happening with Route 66. So maybe at the end of the day, all this really was just a random prop that Blizzard put in as a placeholder to help flesh out the Talon outpost, and then they decided to remove it before actually releasing the map because it blatantly just didn't fit in. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I don't have a good answer for why this folder exists here in the way that it does. I do have a bit of a theory though, however it requires me to go in depth with the other big mystery going on Malevento, which is just as strange, but has a lot more context to support it, which I'll be delving into now. So as I was re-scouring Malevento in an effort to try to locate this missing dossier, I did come across one other curious find, which I hadn't really paid much attention to on my first pass back when the map was on PTR. And that's the fact that out of the entire map, there are only 2 locations where we can see Talon having a distinct presence. One, of course, being the safe room I've already been talking about, and the other being this tiny little cache of Talon supplies situated at the base of the stairwell behind the cathedral. Now, why is it that Talon would happen to dump just a couple crates and a gun in this spot in particular? Nothing particularly special seems to be going on here, but like basically everything I come across when it comes to analyzing maps in this way, things get a lot more interesting when you look just a bit closer. With my attention having been drawn to this particular part of the map thanks to the Talon supplies, I then also noticed this oddly colored stone slab, which at first glance appears to just be part of the floor, but upon further examination might actually be something more. The slab itself seems to have further attention drawn to it by the work light stationed immediately above it. However, this single work light seems to be shining on a spot that isn't even particularly dark. So why would you bother setting up a work light to shine straight down onto just a blank stone slab that exists in an already fairly well-lit location? Well, what if the stairwell doesn't end here at ground level going into the cathedral? What if it keeps going down? Based on the location and odd look of this stone slab situated at the base of the stairwell, I think it's fair to at least consider the possibility that this is not just a stone slab on the floor, but a doorway leading underground. That would explain the work light situated immediately above it, as upon removing the stone slab, you would need some sort of light source to be able to see in the darkness below in order to continue working. And it might also explain why Talon dumped some of their supplies here. It would make sense to keep a small cache of necessary supplies ready right at the point of entry to a deeper, darker chamber. Now, as you might imagine, the first thing I did upon considering this was hop into Overwatch's replay viewer and just no-clip down through the floor, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, there isn't anything actually down there. It's just a dark, spooky void that no player was ever meant to lay eyes on. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's just as empty when considering the canon Overwatch universe. This could very easily just be a subtle hint at what Talon is up to, and maybe it won't be until much later that we actually end up learning, either through an update to the map itself or just other external story content, that there is in fact more going on beneath the surface of Malevento than what is initially discernible from just playing on the map itself. Now, admittedly at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if you considered this underground stairwell theory to be a little bit far-fetched. I mean, sure, canonically there could be many rooms on many maps that we just don't have access to, but why should any of us care about the stairwell continuing underground? What sort of consequence does that have on literally anything when it comes to Malevento or the greater story of Overwatch? Well, I think the significance of what's potentially going on here is best emphasized if we take a look at what Talon's been up to on other maps that are currently playable in Overwatch. Sure, we have places like Rialto where we have a flat-out Talon HQ, but I want to more specifically focus on some of the more subtle presences Talon has historically had, specifically when it comes to their bizarre fascination with excavating ancient relics. Prior to the release of Malevento, Talon has been present on 3 separate archaeological dig sites across 3 separate maps. One of them being the ruins in Ilios, the second being the Petra excavation site, and the third being the survey conducted in Ayutthaya. It's very heavily indicated that Talon is involved with each of these excavations due to, first and foremost, a line from Athena in the Ilios spawn rooms.
Over the past week, Talon activity has been detected in the area. It is my belief that they are attempting to steal the newly unearthed artifacts from the temple ruins atop Ilios.
In addition to the presence of Greek statues present in 2 separate Talon maps, being Chateau Guillard, which is Widowmaker's home, and the Talon HQ in Rialto. And on top of that, we know that Talon is responsible for funding all 3 of these excavation sites, as opposed to just the excavation in Ilios, because of this email correspondence we see on Petra, which states that the same benefactor is funding all 3 dig sites. Now, how does this all wrap around back to Malevento? Well, in one of the Malevento-related blog posts posted on the official Overwatch website, it mentions that Malevento boasts a rich history and even richer benefactors funding its recent reconstruction. Now tell me, just how similar does that sound to what we hear going on in Petra and the other archaeological dig sites? Considering that we already know for a fact that Talon is present in Malevento, I think without question, Talon is the rich benefactor here. And if we look at where exactly this reconstruction in Malevento is actually taking place, it appears to be specifically the old cathedral. So tell me, dear viewer, why would Talon be interested in reconstructing and renovating an old cathedral? Based on the way they looted Ilios' ruins, I'm willing to bet they're looking for something. But if even that doesn't make you suspect of what Talon is up to here, what if I told you that Italy in general was at least somewhat renowned for certain underground chambers? Chambers more commonly known as catacombs. Catacombs, of course, were tunnels dug beneath the earth specifically to house the bodies of those who died a very, very long time ago. They've been the setting for countless horror films over the years, and certainly tend to coalesce a supernatural air of superstition given their nature as mass burial sites. A superstition which I must admit would be incredibly fitting for Malevento, not only because the word Malevento translates to bad wind, which is an almost metaphorical sort of way of describing a bad omen, but also the fact that Blizzard time and time again is calling out how something sinister appears to be within Malevento. A curse, perhaps? Something evil? Maybe that's in reference to Talon, given that they're a fairly evil organization, or perhaps it's referencing something else, something which can't be seen from the surface. Now, the other notable landmark present on Malevento, which I haven't discussed yet in this video, is the statue of Caterina Pastor, a young troubled artist who evidently died at the young age of 25 and has been memorialized via a giant statue in front of the cathedral. Now, knowing Talon's obsession with big statues of women, this in and of itself is certainly a point of interest when it comes to Talon's presence in Malevento, but unfortunately very little is known about this statue and person in particular. As far as I'm aware, she's a character we've never even heard of prior to the reveal of Malevento, so it's hard to say what makes her so interesting that Talon would evidently themselves be interested in conducting an excavation and renovation in the same city she occupied. Perhaps if there are, in fact, catacombs beneath the city streets, either the body of the artist herself is located down there and is what they're seeking to exhume, or even some of her artwork, which for whatever reason is of high interest to Talon. Regardless though of what exactly it is Talon is looking for and why they intend to find it, the one thing which I do think is very safe to say is that Talon is funding the renovation of the Malevento Cathedral, specifically in an effort to reclaim something they consider important. It lines up perfectly with the track record we've seen them carry out in other similar maps, and ultimately plays into the overall nefarious schemes that Talon is well known for conducting. This could even explain the blueprint of a car we see in the Talon safe house. Perhaps their plan is to end up concealing whatever artifact or relic they extract inside the body of one of these perfectly commonplace vehicles we see scattered all across the map as a way to smuggle it out of the town. Does this slab in fact lead to some sort of currently inaccessible underground chamber? Are there dark catacombs lying beneath Malevento's streets? Unfortunately, I don't think we can say for sure at this point, but considering how much Blizzard seems to be overhyping the backstory of this map, I'd say it's probably one of the best theories we have to go on at this point. Now, before I wrap up this video, I will also suggest one alternate theory, which could technically also be possible based on this same set of details and evidence, which is that instead of Talon being present in Malevento in order to discreetly extract some sort of artifact or ancient relic, they are in fact in the early stages of building yet another secret base. We already know about the existence of two other Italian Talon bases, one being in Venice, as we see on Rialto, and the other one evidently in Rome, as stated by Malga in Baptiste's short story. So, is it possible then that Talon is looking to set up yet another base in Italy, this time beneath the streets of Malevento? While I have to admit that the implications behind this really aren't as interesting as Talon seeking some sort of ancient artifact, it does line up pretty well with the specific evidence I covered in this video. The renovation of the old cathedral could just be a cover-up for them building a base beneath it. For all we know, there could in fact be catacombs beneath the city streets, and that's the actual physical location where Talon is looking to set up their base here. And furthermore, the blueprint of a car we see in the Talon outpost could still be used for smuggling purposes, but in this case, it's being used to smuggle Talon supplies and maybe even personnel into the new base, as opposed to smuggling some sort of recovered artifact out of the city. And this specific theory would also lend further credence to the idea of there being a Talon base in Malevento. For all we know, this little single-room outpost is just a misdirect, and the real Talon base, which Blizzard has been teasing in all the marketing material, is in fact a secret facility located underground, which we don't physically have access to at this point in time. Overall, I think both of these theories are very plausible at this point in time, and heck, for all we know, maybe there's both going on here. Maybe they plan to excavate the catacombs for some certain high-value artifacts, and then set up a secret facility down there once they're finished. Needless to say though, it does seem that there is in fact quite a bit of suspect activity going on here, certainly more than you'd initially think from just a first glance at the map itself. However, in order to bring this video full circle and loop back to the mysterious photograph of Route 66's payload I discussed at the beginning, how exactly does all this tie together? Well, it certainly could all end up being coincidental and or completely unintentional, or maybe whatever it is specifically they're looking to extract here is in some way or another linked to Echo. Now, given the incredibly unique nature of Echo as a character and entity within the Overwatch universe, there are a plethora of reasons why Talon may want to get their hands on her. Maybe the reason they're trying to steal all these statues of Greek goddesses and other famous characters and people from history is so that they could get Echo to duplicate them and thus duplicate the powers of a goddess? I'll admit that's a really far out there theory and probably isn't what's going on here. But one other thing to consider is the upcoming story featuring McCree. Now, depending on when exactly you're watching this video, it's entirely possible that this story content has already come out, but at the time of me making this video, all we know about the upcoming McCree story content is that it's something which was originally planned to be released in September 2021, but that it was ultimately delayed due to Blizzard's decision to ultimately change McCree's name. Now, at the time being, we have no information whatsoever to suggest that this upcoming story content will in any way incorporate Malevento, but the fact that McCree is very heavily associated with Route 66, and we also just so happen to see the Route 66 payload present in the trailer for Malevento, does seem like a very suspicious sort of connection. Maybe McCree is going to be involved in a story featuring a Talon scheme to reclaim Echo, while also performing some sort of nefarious excavation and theft of an artifact within the city of Malevento. Once again, I will emphasize this is a very far-stretching theory, but there are a lot of interesting semi-connected pieces here in this puzzle, which, I'll be honest, I am very eager to see if and how any of them end up fitting together. And that's not even to mention some of the other characters and locations we could end up seeing tying back into Malevento and whatever story is taking place here. With Rome, which just so happens to be an actual Italian city that's famous for its catacombs, being added as a new map in Overwatch 2, I'm very curious to see if going forward with the release of Overwatch's sequel, we'll end up learning of some sort of connection between Rome and Malevento, and perhaps whatever operation Talon is conducting here. But that does it for this long video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the mysterious photograph of Route 66's payload present in the trailer, and do you think there's either a secret Talon base being built beneath the cathedral, or is Talon just looking to steal yet another ancient artifact? Either way, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch and Overwatch 2 news and content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.